الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه التابعين. فقد نوينا تعلم وتعليم وتذكر وتذكير للنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة نبيه والدعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة الخير وصلة الرحام وكل ما نواه مشايخنا ابتغاء وجه الله وثوابه وقربه. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما نافعا يا كريم. Bismillah. So in continuation of what we were, or the general topic is that which is connected to marital relation, marital discussion. You guys did already, marriage and the rules of how to make a valid marriage. And after that comes talaq, right? So matters of divorce, and there's certain different types of things that branch out from divorce. One of them was lihab that we mentioned last week. Which is much more rare for those who don't speak Arabic, because it goes back to a certain phrase or a certain way of expressing something that the Arabs were very commonly used, right? To make resemblance between one's wife and the back of one's mother, right? And we did the details about that. So English equivalents to that would be very few. But if a person were to say, like for instance, you are like my mother out of anger, and then they asked him, what is your intention? He said, meaning my mother's haram for me, so then that would fall in, even if, for a person in the English language to say, or in many other languages, to say that you are like the back of my mother, that would be quite strange. But if it happened, it happened. So, but this next one is probably more common. And the verses of the Quran about it are very straightforward. So li'an in general, before we go into the direct meanings of it, is an accusation. Right? So you're accusing somebody of zina, of doing fornication. So the Sharia came to preserve 6 things, which are life, deen, intellect, wealth, and then the last 2, some have made them into one, which is lineage and honor. Some of them combine the 2 and say that they both go back to honor. So when we so anything that violates these 6 things, usually there's a specific punishment that the Sharia has stipulated for that thing called a had. Right? So for killing somebody, there's qisas. For something that violates the intellect, like alcohol or anything that would intoxicate, and then there's certain punishments for that. Specific stealing, there's a punishment for that. It goes against wealth, for preservation of wealth. In regards to lineage and honor, we have a few things. So for instance, honor, backbiting is haram, right? Why? Because it's a violation of what the Sharia came to preserve, which is honor. Along with that, which this relates to both lineage and honor, is to accuse somebody of fornication. Right? So if a husband accuses his wife of fornication, 1, he has violated her honor, right? Unless he brings the witnesses and the proofs, and right, with the conditions that we will mention. Right? But that accusation is a violation of honor. If there is a child in the marriage that is affected, that his status of being a legitimate or an illegitimate child is affected by that accusation, now he's also violating lineage. Right? So the Sharia is very strict on these things, because children have the right to know who their parents are, to be legitimate, right? And people have a right to not be accused. Right? And if they are accused, that the Sharia has set up has sanctioned specific things to happen in order for that person to absolve themselves of the accusation. Right? And this is the same type of incident that happened, that some of the people accused Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, and Allah says, فَإِذْ لَمْ يَأْتُوا بِالشُّهَدَاءِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ هُمُ الْكَاذِبُونَ. That if they don't bring witnesses, then they are liars in the sight of Allah. Right? So Allah absolved her of that. Right? She didn't do it, obviously, but even just the fact that they didn't bring even proof, right? That already necessitates that they're lying. And they didn't bring any witnesses. So even in the Sharia, if a person doesn't bring the witnesses, then they're absolved of that. So li'an, the actual dictionary term, I guess you can call it, it goes back from, we'll go to the word la'an. La'an means to curse somebody. And curse in English has lost its meaning, the profoundness of its meaning. It was more used for bad words, right? But curse in general means to damn somebody, or to declare them far away from the mercy of Allah, or cast an outcast, right? Which is a very big claim for the Arabs, right? To say that had very big meaning. Right? A lot of the words that we use today, the Arabs would never use them that way. Like the Arab would never say, I love coffee, using the word hub. Right? Because hub had a huge meaning to them. They would just say, ashtahi, right? I like it, or I desire it. Right? But they would never use hub, love. They would only use that word, fits, love of Allah, love of a spouse, love of a family member. But in regards to the Sharia, the meaning of li'an is specific testimonies that are emphasized by an oath, by taking an oath, ayman, or oaths. Right? It's the plural of yameen. And the word yameen is the same word for the right hand. So even in this culture, we raise our right hand. Right? So yameen is to raise, is an oath. So it is a testimony which is emphasized by an oath which relates to an accusation from one person, from one side, and it relates to anger from the other side, meaning disapproval of that accusation. So if person A accuses his wife, right, that's from one side, that's an accusation, especially if it's coupled with an oath, right, that's from his side. But if she says, yes, you're right, then that's not considered from her side. So if both sides are not fulfilled, then that's just, that'll have its own rules. We'll go into the rules. So she denies it, right? Then there's certain implications to that. Or he accuses and she denies, then that's what we're going to go into. That's called li'an. Right? He accuses, she denies. Then we have this whole situation. If he accuses and she accepts, that's different. Right? That's not really our discussion here because that's very simple. In regards to his side, his accusation, then this is what's called al-qadaf, right? And qadaf means to throw something, to cast. Once you do it, they say once you throw mud, it sticks. Right? You can't take it back. Right? So in regards to him, it's qadaf. So if he's lying, then he'll be given the punishment, haddul qadaf, right? The punishment of qadaf. And we'll talk about those punishments. And in regards, and if she either accepts it or it is found out that it's true by him bringing witnesses or whatever, then in regards to her, it's zina, right? Or so then the hadd of zina would be applied to them. So all of this, the source of these rulings go back to Surah An-Nur. Surah An-Nur, and we'll read it as it goes on. First, he talks about the second ayah of Surah An-Nur, directly on the first page, he talks about the punishment for doing zina. So he says that the female zani, the female or the male who does zina, then each one of them will be whipped or hit 100 times, 100 lashes. And this should be done publicly in front of other believers as a societal deterrent for others to do that, to fall into that sin. in regards to the accusation of somebody else doing a sin, Allah mentions that those who accuse, and there's a specific condition, al-muhsanat is a specific type of woman, then he doesn't bring 4 witnesses, and he doesn't supply 4 witnesses, then lash him 80 times and never accept his shahada, his testimony ever again. Right? So that's in general. A person accuses a woman. But in regards to a person accusing their spouse, he says, and this is just a summary, just so we have some idea before we go into it, that those who accuse their spouses, and they don't have witnesses, right? Because a lot of times the spouses are alone. They don't have people. So the only witnesses are their own selves, right? Except for the husband himself or the spouse themselves. Then one of them will make a testimony 4 times, billah. We mentioned just now that it's a testimony emphasized by an oath, right? So by swearing by Allah that he's telling the truth in his accusation. And the 5th, so he'll say that 4 times. I'm telling the truth in what I've accused her of. I'm telling the truth. I swear by Allah that I'm telling the truth 4 times. And then the 5th time he'll say, and the curse be of Allah be upon me if I'm lying. And she already admits, right? Or she doesn't say you're right. Right? That would just end the whole discussion. But if she's ghadab, right? She disapproves of what just happened. She doesn't like it. She denies it. Then for her, what she has to do is to testify 4 times with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he's lying, he's lying, he's lying. And then the 5th time that the anger of Allah be upon her if he is telling the truth. So that's the idea. That's very clearly mentioned in Surah An-Nur. So the specific rulings we'll do now. So the author, rahimahullah ta'ala, says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Kitab al-Li'an, إِذَا قَذَفَ الرَّجُلُ إِمْرَأَتَهُ بِالزِّنَا. If a man accuses his wife with zina, right? With fornication, and this has to be something that's unambiguous. It's a clear statement. وَهُمَا مِنْ أَهْلِ الشَّهَادَةِ, and they are both of the people of testimony. And there are certain people who are disqualified from being witnesses, from being people of testimony. So, which he mentions on the next page, right? So only a Muslim would be amongst the people of Shahada, right? Only a free person is a person of Shahada, right? And a person who has already been punished for such an accusation, Allah says just now, we just met the ayat, that do not accept their Shahada ever again, right? So they're automatically disqualified from being a person of Shahada, a person of testimony. Right, so they both have to be a person of testimony. Right, so if he's Muslim and she's not, then they're not both of testimony. Right, he's a slave and she's free, or he's free and she's a slave. They're both not. He has been accused of qadhaf before, or she has been accused, not accused but punished for qadhaf before, and she has been punished for zina before. Then they're both not from the people of Shahada. Okay. In there it says Huma, and the other example? Huma. Okay. وَالْمَرْأَةُ مِمَّنْ يُحَدُّ قَاذِفُهَا. Right? And the next condition is that the woman herself has to be amongst those who that type of woman can be punished for that. Right, so there's only certain types of women. Allah says, وَالَّذِينَ يَرْمُونَ الْمُحْصَنَاتِ. Al-muhsan is a woman who is married. Okay, so she has to be married. Ihsan means to protect. Right, so the punishment for a person doing fornication who's married is way worse than a person who is not married, because Allah has already given them a halal means, and they've transgressed, they've gone past that, they've crossed the limits, and they've taken from haram. Right? Whereas the person who's not married, they don't really have the other option. Right? So the muhsan has a much more strict punishment. Right? So she has to be married. And she has to be a woman who's married in order for this li'an to apply to her. So far 3 conditions, right? That the man has to make a clear accusation of fornication against his wife. The woman has to be a woman of ihsan, meaning she's married. And they both have to be people of testimony, right? Whose testimony is allowed. So a child who's not baligh, who's not mature, or a person who is insane or something, right? These people will not be people of shahada. Right? We'll talk about that in the next page. So the accusation of zina from his side, right? It's the first type. There's other ways to accuse somebody of zina without being direct and saying that you did zina, right? That would be very direct, right? If he says, that child is not from me, right? If he says, and that's from his child, or the child that you have is not from your previous husband, right? And you're lying that child, and so he negates the lineage of her child. Either it be his child directly, right? They've been married, she got pregnant, she had a child. And he says to her, that child's not mine. Right? Then that would be an accusation of fornication. Automatically, right? Because it's very clear. Or she was married prior to him, and she had a child with that previous husband. Then that husband died, or they got separated, and then he married her, and he says, that child is not from so-and-so, meaning the other father. Right, so that would be a negation of the lineage of her child, which would automatically dictate or indicate to him accusing her of fornicating. Make sense? So it doesn't have to be his child. Because she is married at the time, it's his spouse, she's married, and he's negating the lineage of her child. So she's a married woman being accused. So the honor, the ird of a married woman is much higher, right? Because now there's certain implications to that. It's her honor affects the honor of her husband, right? So if she's known as a sinner in the community, it's going to affect his honor, right? So if he says that, he's claiming her to be a fornicator, which then has implications on himself, his own honor. Okay, so that's from one side. There's an accusation from one side. وَطَالَبَتْهُ بِمُوجَبٍ قَذَفٍ. And she demands from him that her rights be fulfilled, meaning that she is not pleased with what he said. Now she has certain rights because she's been accused. She can go to the qadi. She can go to the judge and say, my husband accused me of fornication. He has violated my honor by doing so. And she can seek that her rights be redressed, right? Because what he has done is called qadaf, so there's certain implications to that. So, but we still don't know. Maybe he's telling the truth. Maybe she's lying, right? Maybe she is maybe he does have witnesses, right? So it can go to the qadi, and she has the right to take the case to the judge, because it's her right. So he says, فَعَلَيْهِ اللِّعَانُ. So upon him is the li'an, meaning that this situation of li'an will apply to him. So now he has been, as they say, in common law they have a subpoena, right? You've been summoned to court, right? Somebody's made a claim against you, right? So he will be like that, right? So now there's a claim against him, a claim of li'an against him. Now he has to either give proof, right? So he says, فَإِنْ امْتَنَعَ مِنْهُ. If he takes it back, He says, no, I was just joking, or I didn't mean it, right? Or I was, so then what he said has already gone. When you throw mud, it sticks, right? So he can't just do that. He can't just say, no, I was just joking, and then get away with it free. Because he already, by his accusation of her, he has already violated her honor. So now, the judge, حَبَسَهُ الْحَاكِمُ حَتَّى يُلَاعِنَ. So the judge will imprison him until he either goes forth with his accusation and says, yes, I do accuse her of that, or he says that I'm lying. He belies himself. If he goes through with it, then the case goes to her side. If he says I'm lying, then he is punished for the punishment of an accusation, which is, we just mentioned, 80 lashes, and his testimony will never be accepted ever again. So, that's if he. So if he says, oh, I didn't mean it, or I take it back, right? The judge will keep him. Right? He will not be free until he does one of these two things. Either you go forth with the accusation, or you say that publicly that I was lying, right? It might not be. It might not have to be publicly. Unless he did it. He accused her publicly, that would be different. But his tamam. Well, in la'ana, if he does go forth with it, right? He does go forth with it. He says, yes, she did do it, and I do accuse her of that. وَجَبَ عَلَيْهَا اللِّعَانِ. Then the claim switches to her. So now the same two situations apply. فَإِنْ امْتَنَعَتْ. If she says no, so if she says no, that's not that. One second. Okay, so if she steps, she will be حبسها الحاكم حتى تلاعن أو تصدقه. So if it's from the other side, which is what your question was, right? Yeah. So if she accused him, right, and she says no, I take it back, or I was joking, right? Then she will be she will be imprisoned until she goes forth with the accusation. Answers your question. If she will be held by the hakim until she says that he's lying in his accusation, right? Or she says he's telling the truth. So those are the two situations. Either she says he told the truth, or she says he's lying, right?
This is what happens if the man goes forth with the accusation.
Yeah, so the qadi, the judge, will start with the man, because Allah starts in the Quran with the man's side, right? It'll start with the man. If he doesn't go through with it, then he's punished for the accusation. If he does go through with it, because if he doesn't go through it, he has to say that I was lying, and then he'll be punished. If he does go through with it, then it switches to her. So the claim is made, it goes to her. Either she says that he's lying, and it's not true what he said, or she says, yes, he's telling the truth. Right? So in another one of the so there's a slight difference of opinion about whether her saying he told the truth counts as her admitting to zina, right? Because when we have in Arab in the law, iqrar means an admission of doing something wrong. So if somebody comes to the qadi by themselves, nobody accused them, they just said, I did zina, right? the qadi is not supposed to take it the first time. We're actually taught that the qadi is supposed to say, maybe you just kissed him. No, you didn't. Right? Maybe you don't know what that really means. You didn't do it. Right? Just go make tawbah. Right? You're supposed to discourage them. Right? And the hadith mentioned about certain women who came to the Prophet and said that you did zina. And the Prophet said, no, he tried to put it off. And she said, she just kept coming because that was part of her, she felt that to be an obligation of her tawbah. Right? So she became pregnant. And the Prophet said, go and take care of your, have the baby first, then come back. Right? Then she came back with the baby. He said, breastfeed the baby for 2 years first, and then come back. Right? And then later on, because of her sincerity, they did the punishment to her. And some of the Sahaba mentioned bad things about her, and he said that don't say those things because if her tawbah were to be distributed amongst the whole city, it would have covered everybody's sins. Right? So iqrar, right? If direct admission, admitting to zina shouldn't be accepted the first time, then what about just saying he told the truth? It's not a direct, clear admission, right? So he mentions here so he says that in some of the copies of Quduri that he has the additional word fatuhadda, right? That it says حبسها الحاكم حتى تلاعن أو تصدقه. That the judge will hold her until she either says that he's lying or that she verifies his statement, right? In another edition, that it says until she verifies his statement, then she will be given the punishment, the hadd punishment, right? Meaning for zina, for doing zina. The hadd for zina, which we mentioned just now, is 100 lashes, right? But he says here, وَهُوَ غَلَطٌ. It is a mistake. And that addition is a mistake to say that you had. Why? Because the punishment does not become obligatory by just admitting one time. Right? By saying I did zina one time, then the punishment will not automatically be obligatory. So how could it become obligatory just by saying he told the truth? It's not as clear as an admission, right? Right, so that was the ishgal that the Sharih made. But he says, قال شيخنا, our Shaykh, he says that one way you can solve this seemingly contradictory statement, right, that from the other nuskha, that she would be punished, right, even though punishment is not done just by admitting one time, right, then how could it be done? Right? So to solve that, he says that you could say that what Quduri meant by that, by saying that he tells the truth, that he told the truth, and so she can say either he was lying, or she can say he would tell the truth. So either that Quduri himself, rahimahullah ta'ala, Imam Quduri, meant by tasdeeq, by saying you told the truth, an actual admission of zina. Not just her saying sadaqta, not just her saying you told the truth. Right? That he meant, أو تصدقه means أو تقرر على نفسها, or that she can say that he's lying, or she can admit to doing zina. Right? That's what he meant. Right? So in the matan it says أو تصدقه, or she can verify his statement. She can say he told the truth. Literally means to say sadaqta. Tasdeeq literally means to say sadaqta, that you told the truth. So the Sharih is saying that it's possible that Imam al-Quduri rahimahullah ta'ala meant by that by saying by tasdeeq, that he meant iqrar, an admission of zina. So she can either say that you're lying, right, and negate his claim, or she can say, I did zina, right, which is very, very clear. So, وَاكْتَفَى عَنْ ذِكْرِ التَّكْرَارِ اعْتِمَادًا, and he mentioned that, and in that it's easier than just saying it twice, than saying she will make tasdeeq by saying this, right, that will just make it long. So, is that understood so far? Fadal.
Would she have to admit to it 4 times before it's moved forward? Or
He mentions here, وهو لا يجب بالتصديق 4 مرات. Right, so had does not apply even by making tasdeeq 4 times. So that was the problem, but he meant by tasdeeq iqrar, an admission to it. But what the 4 times will come in is if she denies that he told the truth. Right? So the 2 options, she can deny that he told the truth, or she can say, I did it. Right? So there is no need for 4 times when she admits it. But if she says, no, he didn't tell the truth, then there's 4 times. That's for the 4 times. Okay.
I thought the hadith wasn't applied on somebody making an admission unless they made that admission 4 times.
Yeah, so that's what he said. That's discussion was only brought because the words that Imam Quduri put in the matan, tusaddiqahu, right? That to say sadaqta, right? That she should be punished, that she would be punished by saying sadaqta. No, actually, she would be punished when she says, I did zina, right? She would be punished.
And she only needs to say that once.
No, it's an admission. Right? But the qadi will try to get her to not do that. Right? But in this situation where it's 2 people,
Okay.
right? So if she came by herself, nobody else knew, right? The other guy didn't say anything, right? And she then just hide your fault. But if she came, right, after having been accused, right, now it has implication because if she says no, he's lying, now it's possible that that now you both have to make these oaths by the name of Allah. So that's much more severe situation.
What is the ruling of li'an? Like if someone knows that their spouse is doing things behind their back, is it required for them, or like what is the ruling?
Is it required to tell?
Yeah, to do li'an.
No. But
So could they just forgive, or?
Yeah, there's other. If it doesn't have to go into this situation, right? But if, for instance, he suspects her of doing something, right? Whether he has proof or not, or maybe he does have proof, right? And it brings him to a state where he accuses her, even just out of anger, right? You're probably doing this, right? But it has to be very clear. Then they're automatically in it, whether they want to or not. They're in it, right? Because it happened. If she wants to take this to the judge, right? If she doesn't want to take it to the judge, then there's no issue, right? But it doesn't have to go down that road. He could just talk to her, leave her. Right? There's other options. This is a dangerous situation to put oneself in. Now you have making oaths by Allah that the punishment of Allah is on me if I'm lying. Right? It's very serious things. So those are the conditions, right? So he mentions فإذا كان الزوج عبدا أو كافرا أو محدودا في قذف فقذف امرأته فعليه الحد. So we'll translate, if the husband, right, the one making the accusation, is a slave or a non-Muslim, or has already been punished for accusing somebody else, right, and then he accuses his spouse, then automatically he'll be punished. Why? Because li'an only happens, like this court case, you can say, only happens when they're both people whose testimony is acceptable. Right? So, this person, being a slave, the testimony of a slave is not accepted. Testimony of a non-Muslim is not accepted. وَمَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُسْلِمِينَ وَمَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ وَلَنْ يَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ لِلْكَافِرِينَ عَلَى الْمُسْلِمِينَ مِنْ سَبِيلٍ. What is that? من سبيل. سبيل. What is it? وَلَنْ يَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ لِلْكَافِرِينَ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ سَبِيلًا. Allah has never made for the disbelievers any path against the believers. Right? So the testimony of a non-Muslim is not accepted in the court in this case.
How could a non-Muslim husband make an accusation against a Muslim spouse, Muslim wife?
But it doesn't have to be his own wife. The woman being accused has to be married. So if somebody, for instance, person A, John, right? Hopefully he becomes Yahya, or he stays John with Shahada, that he says that so-and-so's wife did zina, that would also fall into the argument. So since he's a non-Muslim, his testimony is automatically not accepted, so immediately the punishment of false accusation will be applied. Right? So people should be very careful what they say. Right? Or that person already was punished for the same exact thing for a false accusation. Right? Because Allah says that lash them 80 times and never accept their shahada ever. Never accept their shahada abadan, ever. Right? So if the husband, right, or the person who's making the claim is a slave or a disbeliever or already been punished for a false accusation, then he accuses his wife, then there is a punishment on him. So remember we mentioned that from both sides, they have to both be of those people whose testimony is accepted. So he says, وَإِنْ كَانَ مِنْ أَهْلِ الشَّهَادَةِ, if he, the man, is from those whose testimony is accepted, وَهِيَ أَمَةٌ, but she's a slave, or she's a disbeliever, right? Or she has been, here's another answer to your question, and she has been already accused or punished for false accusation, or she is amongst those people, right? So that was the first condition, that they must be the people of testimony. The second was that she has to be married, right? A person of ihsan. Or she is from those people who the accuser of which is not punished, right? So a person accuses a woman who's not married, then this doesn't go into this type of case, right? So if she's not married and she's being accused but she's not married, right, then there's no punishment against him in regards to his false accusation of her, nor is there any lay'an, meaning there's no case brought up between the two people because of this. But the Sharih, rahimahullah ta'ala, means لَكِنَّهُ يُعَزَّرُ. It says in this version, it says yu'azzaz, it's a mistake, it's a raw. لَكِنَّهُ يُعَزَّرُ, that he will be punished by the judge, but it will be a punishment that is not considered a had. It's not considered a had. Right? So he will not be considered a person who has been given the had punishment for a false accusation. Right? So his testimony may still be accepted. Right? So he's punished in a way that's not considered a had. Right? And so when he is punished, if they do certain things to him, it should not reach the limit to where it will resemble a had punishment. And in some of the books they mention different types of had punishment. They could be exiled for a certain amount of time, right? They could, for instance, some of the rulers of the past, they used to make them walk around with no hat. Right? It was like an embarrassment, right, to walk around with no hat. Right? Which shows that people held on to that sunnah of the Prophet. So that's the general zoomed out view of li'an. So now he's going to go into specifics. Right?
In the situation of the husband who makes the accusation, but he is not of the Shahada, does it matter whether or not his wife is considered of Shahada?
No, any one of them who's not Ahlul Shahada is automatically disqualified. Whoever is the accuser will be punished immediately. Right? So, if he is not Ahlul Shahada, automatically any accusation from his side will be punished. Right? If she is not Ahlul Shahada, then he doesn't get punished as a had, as a specific sanctioned had punishment, but he could be punished from the side of the judge by choice of the judge. So the judge has the choice of making ta'zir. Ta'zir is a type of punishment which is mufawwad, which is the decision of which is to the judge. It's up to him.
So if a spouse is not from Ahlul Shahada and let's say their wife knows or thinks that they're doing something, would that mean that they can never then accuse them of anything, because automatically they would be under had? So how would that balance them?
Yeah, so if he's not from the people of Shahada, right, whose testimony is accepted, he should know that, right? So if he does suspect something, if he knows that if he comes straight out and says it,
Sorry, but if he's doing something,
he's doing something. And
yeah, and she's from Ahlul Shahada, so she's accusing him, wouldn't that just be like a getaway card for him?
No, because then that would fall. Well, there would be no had, but she could go to the qadi and say, I wanted a separation. Right? I want to get out of this relationship because of this, and this.
But would he be protected from li'an?
From li'an?
From having li'an applied on him?
The only thing we're discussing is here that this specific type of ruling, li'an, would not apply. There's other issues, right? So other accusations in general, but this type of court case with this, where they both swear 4 times with the same name, that wouldn't happen. Right? But there's other implications for doing those things. You know? Obviously, if he's caught, if he's found out to be having zina, then the punishment of zina would be applied on him. Right? Him only being from the people of testimony only implies the fact that this is a court case where testimonies are necessary. So that would not, this would automatically not apply to that person. Something else, right? It will go to a different chapter. Make sense? But then she has the right to address it in the manner that is, but it wouldn't be called li'an. It wouldn't fall under this category. The li'an is very specific because it has very specific rulings to it. Because Allah says never accept their testimony ever, meaning that their testimony prior to that was already accepted. Make sense? So it's mafhum mukhalaf. So, any other question for that one? See, do you have the same? In the bottom it says لكنه يعذر. It says يعذر. After that, what does it say?
Hasman, you have in the
Hasban.
Hasman,
The meep. Okay, so specific description of li'an. How does it happen? What happens? What are the specific wordings? So he says وصفة li'ani, right? And there it says li'ana. There it says li'ani, right? It says li'an. It's a mistake. صفة li'ani. And يبتدئ القاضي بالزوج. Right? The description of how this court case of li'an will take place is that the judge will start with the husband. Okay? فيشهد, so the husband will testify 4 times. يقول في كل مرة, each time he will say, I testify, أشهد بالله, in the name of Allah, so it's a type of oath. Inni, that verily I, lamina sadiqeen, am amongst the truthful ones, fima ramaituha bihi min zina, in the accusation which I have placed upon her of fornication. ثم يقول في الخامسة, then on the 5th time, he will say, لعنة الله عليه, and the curse of Allah is upon him, meaning the person who is saying this, The curse of Allah is upon him, right? The author didn't put as a quote, alayya, upon me, because nobody wants to say that. Right? The curse. Right? So the curse of Allah is on him, this person in this situation. Right? In kana min al-kadhibin, if he's found to be if he is amongst the liars in that which he accused her of fornication. إن كان من الكاذبين فيما رماها به من الزنا. تمام؟ There is a narration that Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala made it a condition that he has to say ka, you. He has to address her. He can't use third person, right? He can't say, I testify in the name of Allah that I am truthful in that which I have accused her of zina. He has to say, in that which I have accused you of zina. And he has to face her, right? He has to address her directly. Because it's more specific. So the author says, وَيُشِيرُ إِلَيْهَا فِي جَمِيعِ ذَلِكَ, and he'll point at her in all of that, because the pointing negates him talking about a different person, right? When he says her, his intention could be somebody else. So pointing is very direct. So if he says here in Zahir Riwayah, that the statement of Imam Abu Hanifa is Zahir Riwayah, like to say you, I've accused you. Right? So he says that it is Zahir Riwayah that if he uses third person, right, pronouns, her, that by pointing at the same time, then there's no possibility of any ambiguity. Right? But if he's but what it seems to here, that if he doesn't point, then he has to say ka. He has to say you. Right? According to the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. So the author, Imam Quduri rahimahullah ta'ala, says, وَيُشِيرُ إِلَيْهَا فِي جِمِيعِ ذَلِكَ, that he has to point at her in all of that because of the third person pronoun. So once the pointing is done, then there's no possibility of him meaning somebody else. Yeah? So that's from his side. We mentioned that it's from two sides. So he makes that accusation, right? So the Qadi will make him do this. So he makes accusation. She brings him to the judge. The Qadi says, did you really say that? Right? And he says, yes. So he'll make him testify 4 times like this. And the 5th time, the curse of Allah, right? Like that, pointing at her the whole time. If he says no, I lied, right? Then automatically he's punished. Court case is over. Right? So if he does go through with it, then he will have to do this. These 5 testimonies coupled with an oath with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and while pointing at her. So if he does that, then it goes to her side. Either she says, yes, I did zina, right? And then she will be punished. Or she says, he's lying, I didn't do that, it's not true. Right? Then it will go to her. ثُمَّ تَشْهَدُ الْمَرْأَةُ. So in order for her, if she does not do this, then she will be punished. Right? So she has 2 choices. Either she says, I did it, she's punished for zina. Right? Or she says, I didn't do it, she says, or she doesn't do this. So this, Allah says, وَيَدْرَبْ عَنْهَا الْعَذَابِ, and to avert the punishment from her is that she testifies 4 times. Right? So her only 2 options is to go through with it and testify the way that's about to come, or to say that yes, I did it. ثم تشهد المرأة 4 مرات. Then she will testify 4 times. تقول في كل مرة, each time she will say, أشهد بالله, I testify in the name of Allah, إنه لمن الكاذبين, that he is a liar, in that فيما رماني, in that which he accused me به من الزنا, of fornication. وتقول في الخامسة, and she will say in the fifth time, إن غضب الله, the mistake in the mutton, in this nuskha, إن غضب الله عليها, that the anger of Allah be upon her, إن كان من الصادقين فيما رماني به من الزنا, if he is actually telling the truth in that which he accused me of zina, of fornication. Okay? Any questions on that?
Does the order of man going first and woman also apply if the woman is the one applying the li'an on him or accusing him?
That's a good question. Let's finish the second part because it might answer your question. And if not, then we might have to look in some other books if they specifically mention that directly. Because sometimes there's ikhtisar. Right? Anything there in Johara? While I do this. فإذا امتنعا. You guys have the same نسخة?
فإذا تلاعنا.
فإذا امتعنا.
فإذا تلاعنا.
إذا تلاعنا. You have a different one?
فإذا التعالى.
What do you have, Steve? فإذا امتعنا.
Yeah.
He has فإذا تلاعنا. Okay, فإذا تلاعنا, if they both go through with it, they both do the li'an. I mean, they go through with, so he made the accusation and then made the 5 testimonies in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we mentioned. She said, no, I didn't do it, that's a lie. And she made the 5 testimonies. They both went through with it, all the way to the end. Then the qadi will separate them. I mean, their marriage will be separated. And there's a difference of opinion that according to Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala and Imam Muhammad rahmatullahi alayh, that it will be one talaq ba'in. One talaq ba'in. According to Imam Abu Yusuf rahimahullah, that it's tahrim mu'abbad, that they were haram for each other forever. There's no way, because after one ba'in talaq, they can renew the aqd, right? They can get married again. But after, Imam Abu Yusuf said, no, that's it. Why? Because the Prophet said, al-mutala'inani la yajtami'ani abadan. Right? The 2 people who did li'an with each other, they will never be together again, ever again. So the qadi will, so there will be a separation between them. So the qadi will separate between them. حتى يقضى بها على الزوج. Until the judgment is made against the husband. فيفارقها بالطلاق. So he can leave her with talaq. وإن امتنع من ذلك فرق القاضي بينهما ما لم يقض بالفرقة. وكانت الفرقة تطليقة بائنة. And the separation will be 1 talaq ba'in, according to Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala. وقال أبو يوسف تحريم مؤبد. But the qawl of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala is as-sahih, according to al-Istijabi. Sorry, according to yeah, so both Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Muhammad's qawl is the sahih. Why? Because he mentions that because if the qadi makes the separation is from the judge himself, then it becomes ba'in. It's 1 tatliq ba'in. So she still gets the nafaqah, she still gets the expenditure with sukna and a place to stay during her iddah, and the lineage of her child can still be confirmed even up to two years. Even up to 2 years after that time. If she is in her iddah, إن كانت معتدة. If she if she is in her iddah وإن لم تكن معتد, sorry, if she is معتدة, going back to her حيض 6 أشهر. What does it say there?
فإن لم تكن معتدة فإلى 6 أشهر.
Before that.
فلها النفقة والسكنى في عدتها ويثبت نسب ولدها إلى 2 إن كانت معتدة.
Is there any house in there? Let's come back to that. So Imam Abu Yusuf said تحريم مؤبد because of the hadith. So وإن كان القذف بولد وقال أبو يوسف تحريم مؤبد. تمام. وإن كان القذف بولد فالقاضي نسبه وألحقه بأمه. If the accusation was by a child, meaning that the husband accused her of zina by saying that the child is either not his, right? Then the qadi will negate the lineage of the child from the father, from that father, and the lineage will be established to the mother. Yeah? But there is a condition that the mother, from the time that she became, what's the word? The time she conceived the baby, the time that she was pregnant, what is the thing? The embryo attached to her womb. From that time, she was already Ahlul Shahada. She was already a person whose testimony was accepted. Right? From that time, all the way to the time that she gave birth. If in that 9 months, she was, so for instance, he says, حتى لو كانت حين الوضع. If at the time of her giving birth, so he mentions here that it should be from the time that she gets pregnant, not from the time she gives birth, because that doesn't make sense. Right? So even to the extent that at the time that she got pregnant, the time that she became pregnant, she was a kitabiyah. She was a Christian or Jewish. Or she was a slave, and then she became Muslim. She's still pregnant, right? Before, or she became free, then the lineage of the child will not be negated, right? Because she wasn't from the time, all the way from the time she became pregnant to the time that she gave birth. In there was a time where she was not amongst the people of testimony. So that's the condition, that she has to be, that whole entire time, she has to be amongst the people of testimony in order for the lineage of the child to go to her and not to the father who accused her, or by saying that the child is not mine, or the child, right? So by means of that, the lineage of her child will be established, and it cannot be taken out after that. It cannot be changed after that. So he says, فَإِنْ عَادَ الزَّوْجُ فَأَكْذَبَ نَفْسَهُ. Question?
Sorry, so the last one was this only regarding a woman that's not from Ahlul Shahada?
Yeah, so it goes back to, if his accusation of her was by negating the child's lineage to him, right? Then they both go through with the whole thing, right? The child's lineage will be switched to her, not to him. but with the condition that the whole time when she was pregnant, that she was amongst the people of testimony, right? She, at the time of the accusation, she's amongst the people of testimony, because otherwise there would be no this case, right? But because now we've attached this accusation in this case to the lineage of a child, that lineage of the child will be, if she was not, now her being amongst the people of testimony has to be from the whole time of her pregnancy as well, because it has to do with the child. Right, so then, if she wasn't, then the child will still be bin, right? Somebody else will remain, the lineage of the child will remain as it was. Right? But if she was the people of testimony, then the lineage will switch to her. Right? So he says, فَإِنْ عَادَ الزَّوْجُ فَأَكْذَبَ نَفْسَهُ. If the husband goes back and says that he is lying, either directly or indirectly. An example of indirectly, that if the child who he originally negated his lineage dies, then he claims his lineage again later on, right? That would be indirectly saying that he lied. He says, an malin, right? So the child dies, he's got lots of money inheritance, right? Nobody to inherit except for the the father, right? This guy, if he goes back on what he said before, right, and he admits that he lied, then he'll get the money, right? The inheritance, right? Because now the lineage is to the mom, right? So he wouldn't get the money. So he claims that no, he is my son. Give me my money. Then it's as if he lied himself. He said that he was lying originally, and the qadi will punish him. Right? Punish him with 80 lashes, and his shahada will never be accepted. Right? So either he says directly, I was lying, right, which in the beginning we mentioned, or even if he indirectly said he was lying by contradicting himself. Right? وَحَلَّ لَهُ أَن يَتَزَوَّجَهَا. And it becomes permissible for him now to marry her again. لأنه لما حد لم يبقى أهل اللعان. So because now that he's been punished for his false accusation, he is no longer amongst the people of li'an, because now his testimony is not accepted, right? And all rulings that applied to him being to that, like for instance him not being able to marry her ever again, according to the opinion of Abu Yusuf rahimahullah, that will be raised. So now he will be halal. Right? So Abu Yusuf rahimahullah said that if that happened, that they will be separated forever. Mu'abbad, right? Tahrimun mu'abbad. Right? But if this happens, then she becomes halal for him again. Why? Because now he is not from a people of testimony, right? And all the rulings that relate to that will also fall off, which includes a tahrim, right? Which includes him forever being haram on her. But he still has to get whipped 80 times, so he might think twice for doing that. وَكَذَلِكَ إِنْ قَذَفَ غَيْرَهَا فَحُدَّ أَوْ زَنَتْ فَحُدَّتْ. Right? So as long as they are both from the people of testimony, according to the opinion of Abu Yusuf, they can never marry each other again. So this situation, he said that he lied, that he was punished. So now, because of the punishment of the false accusation, he's no longer amongst the people of testimony. So now they can marry again. He mentions وَكَذَلِكَ, and the same ruling applies in قَذَفَ غَيْرَهَا. If he, after having accused her and they went through the whole process, right, they'll be separated. They cannot marry, according to the opinion of Abu Yusuf, rahimahullah ta'ala. Then later he accused another woman who's married, right, and then he was punished for that, right, فَحُدَّ, and he was punished for that. Now he's not from the people of testimony, he can marry her again. Right? Or she did zina and she was punished. So now she's not from the people of testimony. Now they can come back again.
does it matter which one loses their status of?
No, you just meant, or she does zina and she is punished. So now she is punished for zina. Now she is also not amongst the people of shahadas. So let him finish.
Sorry, I mean to say that if the person who lost their status of Ahlu Shahada, can they now be the ones to give the nikah, or like the, can they like offer marriage, or does it matter, like does the order matter how it works?
They can marry, but they can't testify on anything.
Okay.
And them being Ahl Shahada doesn't stop them from everything. There's certain things that have to do with testimony, then they can't do that. Right? So there wouldn't be any ever, like in a court case, like for instance, if they were to see the hilal of Eid, right, their testimony wouldn't count. Right? So it has to be people whose testimony would count in order for them to accept the claim that they did that. Right? Because it all goes back to them being upright and just, and this situation would take them out of that. The scholars differed about what happens. Can a person go back after not being about the person of testimony? Can they become a person of testimony? If they're already accused and punished for false accusation, is there any way back to uprightness? Or so Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, he said yeah, because the next verse, right, Allah says that, and whip them 80 times, lash them 80 times, and never accept for them their testimony, and they are the transgressors. Next verse, except for those who made tawbah after that and rectified, then very Allah is all forgiving, all merciful. So Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that this verse relates to the previous context, not to this verse, right? Whereas Imam Shafi'i said no, it relates to everything that came before it, right? So he said that it relates to the one before it, the zani, or the one who, yeah. Whereas Imam Shafi'i said no, it accounts for that person. So that if he makes tawbah and dhahara tawbatuhu, that it becomes apparent that he changed his ways, then he could go back to being of the people of Shahada. Let's finish this. So if one of them falls out of their status of being a person of testimony, whose testimony is accepted, then they can marry each other. So, right, if he's punished for a different false accusation, or he says that he was lying in regards to this specific case, and then he's punished for a false accusation, or she does zina and she's punished for that, then they can marry each other again, all going back to the qawl of Abu Yusuf rahimahullah ta'ala. Whereas Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Muhammad, they said that it would be one talaq ba'in. Right, so that they would be able to marry each other again. So, what time we usually stop?
7.
Okay. وإذا قذف امرأته وهي صغيرة أو مجنونة فلا لعان بينهما. And if he accuses his wife, and she is young, meaning she's not mature, because the contract of the marriage can be done even if they are not baligh. Right? So if he's married to her and she's not baligh, and he accuses her, or she is a person who doesn't have her sound intellect, then there's no li'an bainahuma. This case would not apply to them. They would not go down the road of having to testify. That won't apply. There's no li'an between them. Okay, just give this on 1 second. Because she is amongst those people whose accuser does not get the had. Right, so we mentioned that she has to be muhsin, but there's other shurut. So he says, لو كان أجنبيا فكذا لا يلاعن الزوج لقيامه مقام. So the conditions that she has to be muhsana, she has to be baligh, and she has to be aqil. Right, so she has to have ihsan, baligh, bulugh, and aqil. So if she doesn't have that, then li'an doesn't apply. Well,
Does it matter if the man is minor and the woman is major?
so I don't think that would apply. How would that happen?
Like,
What would be the, how
she-
could he accuse?
she accuses him.
Yeah, but he's a kid.
Yeah. So would it make a difference, or is it the same thing?
Physically, he wouldn't even be able to do much. Like for that to be even believed in court, right? So, وقذف الأخرس, a person who cannot speak, their accusation لا يتعلق به اللعان. Right? This situation of li'an does not apply to it. Because the accusation has to be tasrih, has to be very clear. Right? And him not being able to speak causes a doubt. And every one of the hudud, the punished, the shar'i sanctioned punishments, they're automatically averted. Bug. They're automatically averted if there's any ambiguousness. Any type of doubt, any shadow of doubt, the had does not apply. Any shadow of doubt. Right? So for instance, in stealing, right? If a person who stole was poor or hungry, right? Automatically it wouldn't apply. Because now there's a doubt that there was a necessity behind it. Right? So this person who is mute, right? He cannot speak, right? There's automatic ambiguity in his accusation. So this doesn't go. This case does not apply. So, وإذا قال الزوج ليس حملك مني فلا لعانة وإن قال زنيتي وهذا الحمل من الزنا فلا لعنة. If the husband says to his pregnant wife that you're pregnant, you being pregnant is not because of me, right? I didn't make you pregnant. Then this case does not apply. وإن جاءت به لأقل من 6 أشهر, even if she gave birth to the child within 6 months, less than 6 months. There was a situation in the time of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, where a man traveled. When he left, his wife was not pregnant. And when he left, his wife, he came back from his travel. 6 months later, his wife gave birth. Alright? Now there's an issue. Is that baby even mine? Or were you already pregnant before I left? Right? Or were you pregnant while I was gone? Right? He came back 6 months later. He came back from his travel. 6 months later, she gave birth. There's a possibility, because babies usually take 9 months. So we'll have that 3 months while he was gone. Right? Either she got pregnant from somebody else, or what happened. Right? So Umar, radiallahu anhu, he said 6 months is not enough for a baby to... She must have already been pregnant 3 months before that, before her husband even came back. Therefore, it's zina, right? So he was about to make that judgment. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu came to him and said, no, don't say that. Why? Because Allah says in the Quran, you can help me with the ayah, that وَحَمْلُهُ وَفِصَالُهُ 30 شَهْرًا, that the pregnancy and the weaning of the breastfeeding are within 30 months. Right? So 12 months is a year, 24, 2 years, and 6 months left. Right? So Allah says another ayat that وَالْوَالِدَاتُ يُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادُهُنَّ حَوْلَيْنِ كَامِلَيْنِ, that the mothers will breastfeed their children for 2 whole years. Right? So 30 months minus 2 years is how many months left? 6 months. So it's possible for her to give birth within 6 months. بنص القرآن. So Ali said, he told Sayyidina Umar that, and Umar said, لولا علي لهلك عمر. If it wasn't for Ali, then Umar would have been destroyed by making that judgment on her. So that's why they mentioned 6 months. But he says that even if the baby comes within 6 months, less than 6 months. And this is the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Zufar, rahimahullah ta'ala. Because there is no yaqeen therein, so he's not considered to be accusing her of that. Imam Abu Yusuf and Imam Muhammad rahimahullah ta'ala said immediately that's li'an. That is li'an, right? So this goes back to him saying, sorry, 1 second, that your pregnancy is not from me, right? So there's no li'an, right? But if the baby comes before 6 months, now there's a difference of opinion. Right? There was opinion, Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Zufar said that there is no li'an in there because there's still some ambiguity. Imam Abu Yusuf, Imam Muhammad, rahimahullah, they said, yajib al-li'an. It's definitely li'an if it comes with less than 6 months. So the Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, if he's not considered, that he is not considered, summarizing, he is not considered to be that he accused her if he connects it to any condition. Right? So he connected his accusation of her to a pregnancy. You're not allowed to connect things to attach a condition, right? Because it has to be clear. You did zina. That would be clear, right? Him saying your pregnancy is not from me is not clear. You can't attach accusation of zina to a pregnancy, right? So automatically he can't do that. So that's why many of the scholars, they chose the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala, that if it comes less than 6 months, then it is not considered li'an, and he is not considered to have accused her. Make sense? Question? How much do you have left? Can we finish? Oh yeah, we have time. وإن قال زنيتي وهذا الحمل من الزنا تلاعنة. But if he says you did zina and that pregnancy is from zina, then that's clear, right? He didn't attach the accusation of her doing zina to anything. Right? He did mention after that something, but he attached it. He specifically said you did zina. Right? So that would be li'an. ولم ينفي القاضي الحمل. Right, so the qadi would not negate the lineage of the child who is in her womb from the husband, right? Why? Because that can only be done after birth. Prior to birth, the rulings to the baby are not applicable yet. Right? So once she gives birth, then rulings are applicable. As long as the baby is still in the womb, then it doesn't. Okay, so that brings us into this one. وَإِذَا نَفَى الرَّجُلُ وَلَدَ امْرَأَتِهِ. If a man negates the child of his wife, عَقِيبَ الْوِلَادَةِ, right after the birth, أو في الحال التي تقبل التهنئة, or at the time where tahniya is accepted, meaning somebody can say congratulations. Right? In that time he mentions, which is 7 days generally. Right? Customarily it's 7 days. Right? So the baby was just born, or he did it within 7 days after the birth. أو تبتاع له عادة الولادة. Or he is giving gifts regarding right, as a congratulations for the baby. Like for instance, clothing, or bedding, right, or different needs, pacifiers, right, rocking, what is it, those things?
Cradle.
Whatever.
Cradle.
Cradle, good word. Right, so this is adatan, right? This is something that was customary. Sahha nafyuhu. Then his negation of that child is taken into consideration, right? Sahha. While the baby is in the womb, la yasih, right? It's not taken into consideration. It's not a valid accusation, right? Because the rulings of the baby don't apply until the baby is actually into the world, actually born. So right after the birth, or during the 7 days, which is customary, that people will congratulate, or during the time that people would normally gift somebody, then something because of the birth, then the accusation is a valid accusation, and he will be considered to do li'an by means of it. وَإِنَّ فَاهُ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ لَا عَنَى. He mentions if he negates it after that, la ana, then he will be considered to do li'an as well, وَثَبَتَ النَّسَبِ, but the lineage will be established to him. Right, because there was a semblance of admission that this baby is mine by means of him accepting the congratulations from the people, and by means of him accepting these gifts that were given. That's a type of saying that yes, this is my baby, right? So if after that he does negate the baby, then it is considered li'an, but the lineage will already be established. Imam Abu Yusuf rahimahullah and Imam Muhammad rahimahullah, they said يَصِحُّ نَفْيُهُ فِي مُدَّةِ النِّفَاسِ. As long as the wife is in her what's the word? Postnatal bleeding, during that time, which is the maximum is 40 days, then it would still be valid. His negation of the child would be taken as a valid negation. But the Imam, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that there's no right to say any specific date or time or amount of time, right? By estimating times. But because people are different, the different states of different people, are different. So our main concern is that which indicates to his acceptance of that baby or not. Right? So him accepting the congratulations, and him not saying anything when he's congratulated. He didn't say, well, it's not my baby, don't congratulate. He didn't negate it. Or him accepting those gifts, or the passing of that time, are all types of indications that he accepts the lineage of that baby to him. Right? So that's the main concern. It's not about a time. It's not about 7 days or the time of nifas or this. And the Sahih, according to many of the scholars here, Imam Abu al-Ma'ali, al-Mahbubi, al-Nasafi, al-Musili, Sadr al-Sharia, they all said the Sahih is the qawl of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala. And he mentions here that if the husband at the time that the wife gave birth was not there, he was absent, he was somewhere else, then this consideration is taken from the time that he finds out that the baby was born. وإذا ولدت ولدين في بطن واحد فنفى الأول واعترف بالثاني ثبت نسبهما وحد الزوج وإن اعترف بالأول ونفى الثاني ثبت نسبهما ولا أنا. If the wife gives birth to two children in one womb, right, twins, and that could happen, and don't say twins just yet, and from the same womb, which is that between the two children there's only 6 months, right? So one came out first, within 6 months, before 6 months, then she got pregnant. She gave birth to another one. Why 6 months? Because we mentioned that 6 months is the minimum time that a pregnancy can take place. So she could have immediately gotten pregnant. Maybe she didn't have any nifas. She immediately got pregnant after having a baby. Then 6 months would be a possible new pregnancy, right? Not from the same person. If it's less than 6 months, then it's considered batn wahid. It's considered one womb. فَنَفَى الزَّوْجُ الْوَلَدَ الْأَوَّلِ. Then, so she gave birth to two children within 6 month period, less than a 6 month period, and the husband negates the lineage of the first child that came out, right? And then he admits to the lineage of the second child. Then both of their lineage are established to him. Why? Because they are considered twins. They are both created from the same fluid. And the zawj, the husband who made the claim, will immediately be punished for a false accusation. Why? Because him claiming the lineage of the second automatically necessitates that he is telling us that he lied on the first by negating the first. Right? Because there's no way that it's not from him. And how could the second one be from him, but the first one's not? Doesn't make sense, right? So it's automatic, him contradicting himself, so therefore he's considered to have said, I lied. Right? It's as if he said, I lied. But if he claims that the first one is his, but the second one is not, right? Then both of their lineages are established to him, just as the first situation. But he will be considered to have done li'an, because he is considered to have accused his wife by negating the second child. والإقرار بالعفة سابق على القذف. Right? And because of an admission of chastity prior to an accusation of fornication. Right? So what he did there, by affirming that the first one is his, he affirmed for her chastity. By negating the second one, he accused her of fornication. So it is as if he testified to her chastity and then accused her of fornication. So that is considered li'an. Right? It's not considered as if he is telling us that he lied, that he's contradicting himself. Tamam. Any questions? وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم الحمد لله رب العالمين.